Shalom. This message is the Melchizedek Fulfillments, part 2 of the series. Before watching, you may first want to review part 1, which is entitled the Melchizedek Atonements, to understand the foundation for this message. First, a brief review on the Day of Atonement. On the 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement, for this is a day of atonement for you to make atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. Every soul that shall not be humbled in that day shall be cut off from among its people. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all of your habitations. It is a set-apart Sabbath, and you shall humble your souls. As shown in some other messages, Messiah stated that he came to fulfill the law or to bring the law to fullness. His manifestation, or his appearance, upon the earth in human form is the body, and his good works made clear what the shadow pictures of the laws of his feasts pointed towards. The shadows of the feast combined to show his plan of salvation for humanity. For example, he is the fulfillment of the perfect Passover lamb sacrifice. And also the events that week in Jerusalem fulfill the ordinances given to the priest to perform both before Passover and on Passover to the very day. What the Levite priests were required by law to perform for Passover was a precise shadow picture of what he performed as well. The Levite priest took the life of the Passover lamb, and Messiah, while he was the fulfillment of the Passover lamb, also fulfilled the role of the priest that sacrificed or took the life of that lamb. He sacrificed himself for mankind. He gave his life for us, but he also literally gave up his spirit. That is why the Gospels say, when he cried again with a loud voice, he yielded up the spirit. He yielded up the spirit. Remember what he said, "No man takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father." So he was literally fulfilling both roles as the Passover lamb sacrifice and the priest that took the life of the lamb. He gave his spirit up. He fulfilled the remaining spring feasts in a similar manner. Some now understand this, but what has been missed is that he also began to fulfill some of the fall feast ordinances as well. You can see the way he began to fulfill the Feast of Tabernacles in another message on this channel. What we will now see is how he also laid the foundation and began to fulfill some of the shadow pictures of specific ordinances for the Day of Atonement when he was here 2,000 years ago. When he was on the earth before, there were some awesome signs and wonders in the Gospels indicating that something very important was happening. So let's look at those. The first event is the conception and the birth of our Savior. The angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim to a virgin, and the virgin's name was Mary. "Behold, you shall conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahushua. He shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Highest, and Yahweh Elohim shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end." And then Joseph her husband, while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him also in a dream, saying, "Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto you Mary your wife, for that which is conceived of her is of the set-apart Spirit. And she shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahushua, for he shall save his people." And as it says in Isaiah, "Therefore Yahweh himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive in the womb, and shall bring forth a son." And then from the night he was born, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, an angel of Yahweh appeared unto them, and the glory of Yahweh shone round about them, and they were very afraid. And the angel said unto them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Messiah the Master." And as Isaiah says, "For a child is born to us, and a son is given to us, whose government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called the Messenger, or the Angel of Great Counsel. And I have formed thee, and I have given thee for a covenant of the nations to establish the earth." His conception and birth fulfilled these prophecies from Isaiah, and the signs and wonders given seem to be pretty self-explanatory. And they certainly are, but there's more. The next event is the immersion, or the baptism of our Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach. Reading from Matthew 3, Then came Yahushua from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be baptized of him. But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of you, and you come to me? And Messiah answering him said, Suffer it to be so for now, for thus it becomes us to fulfill all righteousness. And then John the Immerser, or John the Baptist, immersed Messiah. And Yahushua, when he is baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of Elohim descending like a dove, and lighting upon him. And a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Now John was puzzled why the Savior of the world came to him to be immersed. And on the surface, Messiah's response seems pretty vague, that it needs to be done to fulfill all righteousness. What righteousness? What ordinance or what prophecy is he referring to? Another clue is the voice of the Father stating, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. With his words, it is obvious that something very important has just happened. Part of the righteousness fulfilled is the prophecy in Isaiah 11. And the Spirit of Elohim shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and strength, the Spirit of knowledge and sanctification shall fill him, and the Spirit of the fear of Elohim. But there was actually more righteousness from the Torah, or the law, that was fulfilled by the immersion of our Messiah. Now the next big event we're looking at is the Transfiguration, one of the most mysterious events in the Gospels. Messiah was speaking to the disciples, saying, Truth, I say unto you, there shall be some of you standing here which shall not taste of death until you have seen the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And after 6 days, Messiah took Peter, James, and John and brought them up into a high mountain apart. And Messiah was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared before unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Messiah, Master, it is good for us to be here. If you will, let us make 3 tabernacles right here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And while Peter spoke, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. So going up into the high mountain for the Transfiguration does fulfill part of Isaiah 40, verse 9. O you that brings glad tidings to Zion, go up on the high mountain. Lift up your voice with strength, you that brings the glad tidings to Jerusalem. Lift it up, fear not. Say unto the cities of Judah, Behold your Elohim. But again, with the voice of the Father coming down and speaking, it is obvious that something so very important has just happened, something that is not detailed in the Gospels and in fact is kept a secret. As Messiah said to the 3 disciples that saw, Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. What Father did was provide witness to his Son as the prophet of Deuteronomy 18:18. I will raise up to them a prophet of their brethren, like unto you, Moses, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them as I shall command him. And whatever man shall not hearken, or shema, hear and obey, whatever man shall not hear and obey to whatsoever words that prophet shall speak in my name, I will take vengeance on him. And so the Father told the 3 disciples, Hear ye him, shema, hear and obey him. Be ye my witnesses, and I too am a witness, says Yahweh Elohim, and my servant whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe and understand that I am. And as Moses came down from the mountain of Sinai from the glory of Yahweh, and his face was shining as the sun, and he had to put a veil over his face, so too was Messiah now, all of him shining as the light, as the sun, as the prophet, like unto Moses. But there's even more hidden there. The last big event that we look at is the preparation for and the completion of his sacrifice for us. From John chapter 12, after Messiah had entered Jerusalem and had come to the temple courts, Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this cause I came unto this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then came a voice from heaven saying, I have both glorified it, and I will glorify it again. Some of the people that were there and heard it said that it thundered, and others said, an angel spoke to him. Yahushua answered and said, This voice came not because of me, but it was for your sakes. Now is the judgment of this world, and now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. This he said, signifying the death that he should die. And from Isaiah 42, I, Yahweh Elohim, have called you in righteousness, and I will hold your hand, and I will strengthen you through these trying days. And I have given you for a covenant of a race, for a light of the Gentiles, to open the eyes of the blind, to bring the bound, and them that sit in the darkness out of bonds and the prison house. Father, glorify thy name. I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. I am Yahweh Elohim, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another. Now, the other great sign of his Passover sacrifice on that dark day was that from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And yes, that darkness is the fulfillment from Amos chapter 8. And it shall come to pass in that day, said Yahweh Elohim, that the sun shall go down at noon, and the light shall be darkened on the earth by day, and I will turn your feasts into mourning. So as you've seen, each of these events fulfilled prophecy that was spoken hundreds of years before by Isaiah and Amos. But Messiah filled many other prophecies with his words and his actions, and yet only these events are witnessed to by the great signs and wonders that were visibly seen and heard from the heavens and in the heavens, like the angels appearing, and the Spirit descending as a dove, and the sun being darkened, and the very voice of the Almighty. There is another layer that is being fulfilled. These events, with confirmations, signs, and wonders from our Father in heaven that give his witness of his Son, also points us towards understanding the mystery of Elohim that is hidden in his word. For as Paul says, we speak the wisdom of Elohim in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which Elohim ordained before the world unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew. This hidden wisdom, the mystery of Elohim, is his detailed plan of salvation. And the reason for these great signs and wonders is to point us towards the answer that is found in Leviticus chapter 16. This is a chapter that defines the tasks that the Levite high priest must perform on the Day of Atonement. First off, Leviticus chapter 16 verse 32 states that the priest that shall be anointed shall make atonements, and the high priest that is anointed exercises the priestly office after his father. In Luke 4, Messiah proclaimed that he had been anointed. In Romans chapter 8, Paul stated that Messiah, Yahushua, is he who is at the right hand of Elohim, the Father. And it is Messiah that also intercedes for us. He exercises the priestly office according to the will of his Father. By this oath the Father said unto his Son, Yahweh swore and will not repent, You, my son, are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. By so much was Yahushua made a surety of a better testament, a better covenant. He is also able to save them to the uttermost that come to the Father by him, seeing that he ever lives to make intercession for them. So the Levite high priest in Leviticus 16 was anointed to intercede for the people of the Old Covenant after his father, the former high priest. So too is Yahushua HaMashiach anointed by his Father to intercede or make atonements for us as the high priest of the order of Melchizedek. With that, it is time to look at the duties of the Levite high priest on the Day of Atonement. On that day, the Levite high priest had a large list of ordinances or tasks to complete for the annual atonement of the children of Israel. Starting from verse 3, these are the first set of tasks that Levite high priest had to perform. Thus shall Aaron enter into the set-apart place with a calf of the herd for a transgression offering, and a ram for a whole burnt offering. And he shall put on the consecrated linen tunic, and he shall have on his flesh the linen drawers, and shall gird himself with a linen girdle, and shall put on the linen cap. They are set-apart garments, and he shall bathe all his body in water, and shall put them on. And he shall take of the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats for a transgression offering, and 1 lamb for a whole burnt offering. And Aaron shall bring the calf for his own transgression offering, and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. And he shall take the 2 goats, and place them before Yahweh by the door of the tabernacle of witness. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yahweh, and the other lot for the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring forward the goat on which the lot for Yahweh fell, and shall offer that goat for a transgression offering. And the other goat upon which the lot for the scapegoat came, he shall present alive before Yahweh to make atonement upon him, so as to send him away as a scapegoat, and he shall send him into the wilderness. And Aaron shall bring the calf for his transgression, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house, and he shall kill the calf for his transgression offering. So, from that list of tasks, the first thing that the high priest must do, as seen in Leviticus 16, verse 3, is to enter into the set-apart place with appropriate sacrifices. Now, we're not going to go into much of the specific symbolism and foreshadowing of the sacrificial animals in this message, as that can be a whole other message later, Yah willing. So the Levite high priest first enters into the set-apart place with those appropriate or acceptable sacrifices. So let's start understanding this mystery. The first thing that our Messiah did 2,020 some odd years ago is that he came into the world into a temporary, corruptible body. He came and tabernacled with us, a body that was the temple of the set-apart spirit that resided within him. And Paul reminds us, don't you know that you are the temple of Elohim, and that the spirit of Elohim dwells in you? And Messiah himself said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up, as he spoke of the temple of his body. So when Messiah was conceived and born on this earth, the high priest of Melchizedek literally came down from heaven and entered into that body that was prepared for him. And that body is the set-apart place, or the temple that Yahweh literally placed his name upon when the angel told Joseph what his name would be. The body, or the set-apart place that the spirit of Elohim dwells in. And the sacrifices that he brought to the earth were in fact his own body. From Hebrews chapter 10, wherefore when he came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offering you would not, but a body you have prepared for me. And then said I, lo, I come to do your will, O Elohim. He takes away the first, that he may establish the second, by which we are sanctified through the offering of the body, or the acceptable sacrifice of Yahushua our Messiah, our Savior, once and for all. So, just as the first task for the Levitical high priest was to enter the set-apart place with acceptable sacrifices on the Day of Atonement, so too Messiah's first task was to enter into the set-apart place of his earthly body with the acceptable sacrifices, which was himself, thereby fulfilling the shadow picture that was in the law right there in Leviticus 16 for the first task of the Levite high priest on the Day of Atonement. Maybe you're thinking that's just a coincidence, so let's keep going. The next task that the Levitical high priest had to perform after he had come into the set-apart place with the acceptable sacrifices, he had to bathe his whole body in water. And remember that the next time that there were signs and wonders given of Messiah from heaven was when he was immersed by John the Baptist. The voice of his father, the dove that came upon him. These signs show the importance of when the high priest of the order of Melchizedek also fully immersed his whole body in water. For thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. And righteousness is from the law that he came to fulfill. So as the Levitical high priest immersed his whole body in water, so too did Messiah immerse his whole body in water. And thus, just as he had told John the Immerser, Messiah had just fulfilled all righteousness, including that part of Leviticus 16, verse 4. The next task for the Levite high priest after he had bathed is, of course, to put on his garments. And the garment that he is to wear on the Day of Atonement is different from the garments that he would wear on every other day of the year. Those other days he would wear the detailed, multicolored garment and a breastplate holding the 12 precious gemstones. But today, on the Day of Atonement only, the Levite high priest shall put on the consecrated linen tunic, and he shall have on his flesh the linen drawers, and he shall gird himself with a linen girdle, and shall put on the linen cap. These are set-apart garments. These were the white linen clothes that symbolized a pure covering for an imperfect priest that was about to go into the presence of the perfect Creator. So, do you remember the next time the signs and wonders were in the gospel that gave testimony to Messiah? The Transfiguration. Yahushua took Peter, James, and John and took them up to a high mountain, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and here it is, his raiment was white as the light. And his Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him." And just as the Levite high priest had changed into a white linen garment that symbolized purity, Messiah was literally transfigured, and his garment was turned pure white and pure as the light. And just as the Levite high priest was now prepared to perform the actual atonement sacrifices, so also now was Messiah fully prepared to perform the coming good works, his sacrifice that was required to provide atonement for all of humanity that would cling unto him. His 3 disciples there for the Transfiguration, they were seeing the Son of Man coming into his kingdom as the high priest of Melchizedek, just as he had spoken of 6 days earlier. And it was only then that Messiah could perform the atonement sacrifices as the high priest. Why? Even though he had come into the set-apart place with the acceptable sacrifice and had immersed himself in water and had changed into the white set-apart garments, there was something else. Because even though a Levite priest could begin serving at age 25, there was a 5-year apprenticeship before they could serve in the set-apart place to perform sacrifices in the Levite courses or perform those sacrifices as the high priest, as seen in 1 Chronicles 23. The Levite high priest to perform the sacrificial tasks on the Day of Atonement had to be in at least his 30th year. And in Luke 3 it says, Yahushua himself began to be about 30 years of age. Now when you look at the Greek in detail at the word that is transcribed as about, which is G5616, it can mean a few different things. It can mean as if, like, or about. But when it's used before numerals, it is also used to mean nearly. So Luke 3 is actually telling us that Messiah was nearly 30 years old when he began his ministry. He was in his 29th year. And it just so happens that Messiah's transfiguration, denoting the fulfillment of the completion of his preparation on earth to be the high priest of Melchizedek, stating that again, while he was here on earth, the transfiguration was on the Day of Atonement itself, the very Day of Atonement. You can see the details of that in the message, His Fast, the Day of Atonement, on this channel. And 5 days after the Day of Atonement is the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. And that day is the actual day that Messiah was born upon, the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Again, please see the details for that in the message, Good Tidings of Great Joy, the Feast of Tabernacles message on this channel. So, just 5 days after the Transfiguration, when he had fulfilled those preparation tasks that the high priests of the order of Melchizedek on the earth had to complete to begin the works of sacrifice and atoning for the transgressions of mankind, he turned 30 years old. The minimum age to go into the set-apart place to actually perform the atonement sacrifices and the other ordinances required. I hope you're starting to see how perfectly his plan of salvation was put together and how incredibly awesome the perfect fulfillment of it has been. The next task for the Levite high priest is, he shall take of the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats for a transgression offering, and 1 lamb for a whole burnt offering. And Aaron shall bring the calf for his own transgression offering, and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. So the Levite high priest is basically presenting the animals that are about to be sacrificed. Again, we won't go into the symbology for the sacrificial animals here, but notice that this is the first and actually the only time in Leviticus 16 that, quote, 1 lamb from the congregation of the children of Israel, unquote, is specifically mentioned by name. And what was the very next event where the great signs and wonders were given to testify of Messiah? It was in the following spring, in the first month of the year on the true calendar. He arrived in Jerusalem in the days of preparation before Passover, specifically entering the city on the 10th of the month. This is the day that the Passover lamb is to be selected. And arriving on this very day, he presented himself for inspection as the selected Lamb of Elohim for that Passover, one lamb from the congregation of the children of Israel, the tribe of Judah, and the royal lineage from David through his mother. And this can be seen more in detail in the Passover message on this channel. And after he entered in Jerusalem, he went up to the temple and inspected the temple area. And so what is the witness for Messiah being the selected Lamb of Elohim, for being presented to the world as the atoning sacrifice for all who will remain in covenant with him? The way and the truth and the life that no man shall go to the Father except by him. This is when Messiah said in the courtyards of the temple, "Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, but for this cause I came unto this hour. Father, glorify your name." And then came a voice from heaven saying, "I have both glorified it, and I will glorify it again." And then Messiah said, "Now is the judgment of this world, and now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, this will draw all men unto me." And this is the witness of both the Father and the Son, both the fulfillment of the Passover ordinances and fulfillment of the Day of Atonement ordinances for the Levite high priest, and of the sacrificial animals being selected, presented, and readied for sacrifice. Messiah had gone up to the temple to present himself as this acceptable sacrifice for atonement. And Leviticus 16 verse 5 was thus fulfilled. "And Aaron shall bring the calf for his own transgression offering, and shall make atonement for himself and his house." And this signifies that the high priest has been given the authority to perform or make the atonement for himself. And even though we know that the Levitical high priest did not ever have the authority to forgive and remove transgressions, he was given the authority to purify himself and his people and to make atonements on this day every year. And what did Messiah pray to his Father the night of the Last Supper? He said, "And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they might also be sanctified through the truth." Sanctify in Greek is G37 and is defined to make set apart, consecrate, or purify. So like the shadow of the law in Leviticus 16 verse 6 for the Levite high priest, the high priest of the order of Melchizedek also has the authority to sanctify or consecrate or purify himself, set himself apart. And so now the very next task for the Levite high priest involved the 2 goats. "And he shall take the 2 goats and place them before Yahweh by the door of the tabernacle of witness. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, one for Yahweh and the other for the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring forth the goat on which the lot for Yahweh fell, and shall offer him for a transgression offering. And the goat upon which the lot of the scapegoat came, he shall present alive to send him away as a scapegoat, and he shall send him into the wilderness." And the very next day, after the Last Supper, Messiah was presented to an assembly of Judeans by Pilate, alongside one other prisoner known as Barabbas, just like the 2 goats were presented. And just as one goat is selected to be killed as a sacrifice, as a transgression offering, and the other goat is to be set free, so too was Messiah selected and sentenced to death to be crucified for us, his sacrifice for the transgressions of the world, while that other prisoner was set free. Just like those 2 goats. The shadow picture of those 2 goats was fulfilled right there. And we are still proceeding in the precise order of the verses of Leviticus 16 for the duties of the high priest. And we're seeing how they are all being perfectly fulfilled. The shadow pictures in the law of Leviticus 16 of what Messiah was perfectly fulfilling even in the same order as those events happened during his time on earth before. And so what's the next task of the Levite high priest? It was time to sacrifice the calf. "And Aaron shall bring the calf for his transgression, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house, and he shall kill the calf for his transgression offering." And the next great sign given to testify of Messiah was the darkness over the land. And this is when Messiah sanctified himself on the cross with the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified. And he gave up his life and made that atonement for the transgressions for you and for me and for everyone else that has ever taken a breath on this earth that will stay in covenant with him. It is a great thing for you to be called my servant. Behold, I have given you for the covenant of a race, for a light of the Gentiles, that you should be for salvation to the end of the earth. Even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son may also glorify you. And so Yahushua HaMashiach yielded up his spirit, and he himself gave up his spirit, as he said, no man takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it up again. So, just as the Levite high priest sacrificed the calf, the acceptable atonement sacrifice that he had brought from the very beginning when he entered the set-apart place, so too did Messiah, the Lamb of Elohim, the high priest of the order of Melchizedek. He sacrificed the acceptable sacrifice that he had from the very beginning when he was born. When he came into the set-apart place of his body, the only acceptable sacrifice ever for the eternal atonement of all the transgressions for everyone that has ever been in covenant with him. The high priest of the order of Melchizedek sacrificed the only acceptable atonement sacrifice. He sacrificed himself. And thus he also fulfilled Leviticus chapter 16, verse 11. So to summarize all of this, Yahushua HaMashiach was ordained by his Father to be the high priest of the order of Melchizedek, as this was shown in detail in Part 1, the Melchizedek Atonements. Messiah's manifestation in human form and what he did began to fulfill the shadows and the law of the good things to come, which in part were the works that the Levite high priest was tasked to perform in Leviticus 16 to provide atonement for the children of Israel. His conception and his birth fulfilled the entering of the high priest into the set-apart place with the acceptable sacrifices. The immersion of Messiah, his baptism, fulfilled the bathing of the whole body of the high priest. Messiah's transfiguration and the wearing of the shining and pure white garment fulfilled the act of the high priest in the putting on of those set-apart garments. And with the transfiguration, with Moses representing the law and Elijah representing the prophets, on the Day of Atonement, Messiah had now fully fulfilled all of the preparation ordinances that the Levite high priest was required to do on the Day of Atonement in order to perform any of the sacrificial and atonement tasks that were forthcoming. And 5 days later, on the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, Messiah turned 30 years old on the earth, which was the required age for the performance of those Day of Atonement sacrifices as the high priest. And the next year, on the 10th day of the first month, when the sacrificial lamb is required to be selected, Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, the Lamb of Elohim, entered into the temple grounds and presented himself both as the Passover sacrifice and also as the acceptable atonement sacrifices, fulfilling the tasks of the Levite high priest when he presented the sacrificial animals by the door of the tabernacle of witness. The selection of Messiah to be killed and the release of Barabbas fulfilled the shadow picture of the law where one of the goats was selected to be sacrificed as the transgression offering and the other goat was to be released into the wilderness. And finally, Messiah's sacrifice on the cross as the atonement for all who will believe and obey fulfills the killing of the calf by the Levite high priest in Leviticus 16, verse 11. Now, you may have never heard of anything like this before, and perhaps this summary of this part of the mystery of Elohim has never been previously fully revealed. But this is truly how Yahushua HaMashiach has fulfilled those first ordinances in Leviticus 16, which is part of his plan of salvation for us, the Melchizedek Atonements, and he is not through. And what of the angels that appeared to escort him back up to the heavens in Acts chapter 1? The final sign of his first manifestation in human form on earth. That is the transition to where he will soon complete his plan of salvation for us, the mystery and the knowledge of Elohim. And this will be shown in part 3 of this series, Yah willing. But what has just been shown, these good works that he completed when he walked the earth and was lifted up almost 2,000 years ago, his fulfillment of the shadow pictures of the law of what the Levitical high priest was required to perform to provide atonements for the children of Israel, his fulfillment of those tasks that has been done so far, these are the Melchizedek fulfillments. Thank you for listening. May Yahweh bless you.